Hello and welcome to another episode of Talking Politics here at The Hindu with me, Nistula Hebbar, where we unpack the news making the headlines in domestic politics. Now, this week was the week of reckoning when results for the assembly polls to Gujarat and Himachal Pradesh and the Municipal Corporation of Delhi polls were declared. And of course, there were by polls in several states. Now, the BJP won an unprecedented majority in Gujarat and a seventh straight victory in a row, while the Congress wrested Himachal Pradesh from the BJP and the Aam Aadmi Party won the MCD polls in Delhi. And while it looked like all the parties concerned had got something or the other in their kitty to celebrate, the details of the victories and the losses will be analysed from messages for the 2024 general elections for some time to come. Well, that is not what we're going to talk about. For this week was also when Parliament convened for the winter session and welcomed a new chairperson for the Rajya Sabha, Vice President newly elected Jagdeep Dhankhar, who received felicitations from across the party lines as he assumed the chair in the Rajya Sabha on Wednesday. What he said in his first address to the House on the Supreme Court's jurisdiction on vetting and appointing judges and the National Judicial Accountability Bill, through which the government had tried and failed to assert their rights on the same, will be the subject of this week's Talking Politics. This is a subject which I was also not very fluent about, but I have been following this controversy since 2015 when the NJAC was notified. So let's start from the beginning. Let's take it step by step so that it is all clear to all of us. So first, let's go on to what Vice President Dhankhar, himself a well-known lawyer, had to say in his address in the Rajya Sabha. Now, Mr. Dhankhar underscored Parliament's position as the exclusive and ultimate determinative of the architecture of the Constitution. He said, and I quote, "Honourable members, there is no parallel to such a development in democratic history where a duly legitimized constitutional prescription has been judicially undone." He was referring to the Act of Parliament, the NJAC, which was scrapped by the Supreme Court. It's a glaring instance of a supreme compromise of parliamentary sovereignty, the new Vice President said. He pointed out that the NJAC bill and then later an act had received unprecedented bipartisan support but was quashed on the grounds that it was not in sync with the basic structure argument of the Constitution. Calling Parliament the custodian of the ordainment of the people, Mr. Dhankhar also said it was duty-bound to address the issue and expressed confidence that it would do so. Democracy blossoms and flourishes, he said, when its three facets of legislature, the judiciary, and the executive scrupulously adhere to their respective domains. Mr. Dhankhar said, and he added that the doctrine of separation of powers must be respected. Here again, I quote him, "Any incursion by one institution in the domain of the other has the potential to upset the governance apple cart." Well, this was not the first time that Mr. Dhankhar or members of the government, including Law Minister Kiren Rijiju, had flagged the issue. Last week, while speaking at an event in the presence of Chief Justice of India, D.Y. Chandrachud, Mr. Dhankhar had said that the power of the people reflected through the most certified mechanism on a legitimized platform like the Parliament of India had been undone. Quite clearly, the government and now even Vice President Dhankhar, who holds a constitutional position, is eager to highlight the shortcomings of the Collegium system and reassert some of the lost rights of the government in appointment of judges. Now, to understand this whole issue, as I said before, one needs to go step by step, as I myself did, in looking at the whole controversy. So let's start at the beginning by asking the basic question. What is the Collegium system? Now, the Judicial Collegium, according to my colleague Krishnadas Rajagopal, who covers the Supreme Court for the Hindu and has written an excellent explainer on the whole issue. In fact, I'm just borrowing generously from that explainer. He says that it is an invention of the Supreme Court. It has no mention in the text of the Constitution of India. The Chief Justice of India and four senior-most judges of the Supreme Court basically deliberate recommendations of judicial appointments and transfers to the constitutional courts. Now, if the government differs with the Collegium on a candidate, the Collegium can veto the government. This leaves the government no choice but to comply. The Collegium system was born out of years of friction, accentuated by instances of court packing, mass transfers of High Court judges, and two supersessions to the office of the Chief Justice of India in the 1970s. Now, the Collegium system was the result of the judiciary's decision to insulate itself from executive interference. The basic tenet behind the Collegium system is that judicial independence is part of the basic structure of the Constitution. The system is founded on the belief that the judiciary, to remain independent, should have primacy over the government in judicial appointments and transfers. However, over the past 3 decades, since its inception, the Collegium has attracted charges of opacity and nepotism in judicial appointments and transfers. A doubt exists in the public mind whether the Collegium system has been tainted by pressures from within. So, into this system of Collegium and the judiciary itself deciding on who to appoint judges came the NJAC, the National Judicial Accountability Bill. And in 2015, under the newly elected Narendra Modi government, who wanted to revert to the older system where the government had some say in the appointment of judges. Now, let's go to NJAC now. So first you had the Collegium system, and now the government comes up with a bill, the NJAC bill, which also became an act because it passed both houses of parliament with the President of India giving assent. So what are the main provisions? The NJAC, the National Judicial Appointments Commission, is a constitutional body proposed to replace the present Collegium system of appointing judges. It was established by amending the Constitution, 99th Amendment, passed by the Lok Sabha on August 13, 2014, and by the Rajya Sabha on August 14, 2014. The Parliament also passed the National Judicial Appointments Commission Act 2014 to regulate the NJAC's functions. Now, both bills were ratified by 16 state legislatures, and the President gave his assent on December 31st, 2014. The NJAC Act and the Constitutional Amendment Act came into force on April 13th, 2015. Now, what is the composition of the NJAC? How does the NJAC then propose to change the Collegium system? Now, the NJAC says that it should be the commission should be of 6 people: the Chief Justice of India, 2 of the most senior judges of the Supreme Court, the Law Minister, and 2 eminent persons. The NJAC was scrapped by the Supreme Court that said it violated the basic structure doctrine of separation of powers enshrined in the Constitution. Now, what were the main areas of contention with regard to the government, between the government and the Supreme Court on this issue? Well, the contention was on the 2 eminent persons required to be had on the NJAC panel. The 2 eminent persons were to be nominated for a period of 3 years, and the nomination was to be finalized by a panel comprising of the Prime Minister, Chief Justice of India, and the Leader of the Opposition. According to Section 5 of the NJAC Act, if 2 members disagree with the recommendation, the Commission can't make that recommendation. So, therefore, the petitioners say the 2 nominated members can veto a decision of the NJAC, and thus the government will control the NJAC's decisions. Now, all this back and forth and a lot of plain speaking has created a situation where the issue is back at the forefront of political discourse. Now, the issue has been seeing a regular seesaw, with the Law Minister and the Vice President raising the issue and Supreme Court judges clapping back in good measure in pronouncements within the court. There are also regular issues raised by the Supreme Court that certain appointments are being held back. The government is procrastinating because the government also has to say yes to a particular appointment. Only if they say no can a veto be done and the appointment go ahead. So even that is not happening. Things are hanging fire, etc. So all of this back and forth is happening between the judiciary and the government. Now the issue is between the union government and the judiciary, and there seems to be a constant pushing of boundaries on just how far things can go. So, for example, as an addendum, after the vice president says all of this on Thursday, in response to a question in the Rajya Sabha, it's a written question asking for a written response, Law Minister Kiren Rijiju says that the government has no intention of bringing the NJAC again. So it goes this way and this goes that way. It seems that both these institutions are pushing at the boundaries of just how far they can go to get their way without creating a really, really bad sort of controversy between these very, very key institutions of the state. This, I can confidently say, however, is not the last word on the issue. And whenever it does pop back, and it will, we shall be here to cover it. This is all I have for you this week. Thank you for watching.